All my camp gear goes on one side, all my clothes and maybe tools go on another side. Is significantly more concealed. But if you weren't looking for it, you'd probably just drive right by that. With a light drizzle, I would be fine just sleeping in this right here. Look up through the trees at the stars, right? When it's time to break camp, you just pull that. There you go. Pretty simple camp setup. Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Jason, and today we are talking about traveling super light in an ultralight camp setup. And when you're traveling on a vehicle such as this one, traveling ultralight is more important than ever. Just like when you're on foot, you can only carry so much gear. You're not quite as limited on something like this because the machine itself is going to carry some of your equipment, but you still have to be very particular, very choosy about the equipment that you carry because you can only haul so much. An all-terrain vehicle like this one is absolutely amazing. You can take it pretty much anywhere. These passenger pegs are pretty conveniently placed. And now all my gear can go conveniently in these dry bags and in these side pouches right here. This keeps it protected if you should lay the bike down for whatever reason. This is going to keep your gear protected from abrasion. And then if it's raining on you, which if you get on the motorcycle, it's going to rain. Pretty much, at least that's been my experience. And then if you're setting up camp and stuff like that, you don't have to worry about taking your stuff out and getting it covered up and finding shelter. You just leave the thing out in the rain and everything stays nice and dry, which is awesome. Now there's a couple ways of going about this. Of course, you can load up with saddlebags like this, which are fantastic, and it's my preferred way of doing it because you don't have to carry the weight. The machine carries the weight, you aren't carrying the weight. But now if you're carrying a passenger, this is obviously going to be in the way. So if I needed to double up for whatever reason, I could take that thing off, and then the passenger could potentially carry some of the equipment in a backpack like this. This backpack from Kriega, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but this backpack is awesome because it is a dry bag. It is a roll top dry bag here, and then in this back pocket here, which this part isn't dry, but this little pouch is, so you could keep, electronics or something like that in there, smaller things that need to stay dry. So everything can go in here, rolled up, and it's gonna be nice and safe from the elements, which I think is really nice. And this pack is super comfortable, not just for motoing, but just for general use. This is a really awesome pack, just for hiking, like day tripping and stuff like that. This is a really cool pack. I like that a lot. It's because either you use a dry bag like this one, or you put all of your stuff in individual type dry bags or Ziploc bags or whatever inside of the pack to keep it dry. Because if you're gonna be outside for an extended period of time, you're gonna get wet eventually, so you have to keep your gear dry, your clothes dry, and all of that. These saddlebags are still covered in dirt from Mexico. I haven't washed it. Oh. So this is cool. So this is an aluminum bottle that I can carry extra fuel in, and it's got some fuel. I can carry oil or I could carry fuel in this. And these are really handy. I like this a lot, but I prefer, if you can, just like it's always best to carry water in your body to fill up your belly. That's the best place to carry water. The best place to carry fuel on a motorcycle is in the tank, or in your vehicle. It's the best place to carry it is in the tank on the truck. And if you can expand that range with adding an additional tank like I did on my truck, then awesome. That's the best way to carry it rather than jerry cans and stuff strapped on something, because it's a lot more vulnerable and you have to stop and fill up. This is 5.8 gallons of fuel, and I've got nearly a 300-mile range. So I most likely will never need this right here. I could potentially put, this one's labeled oil, so this one probably has motor oil in it, but I could potentially put oil in here for an oil change if I should need it. Or what has happened before is we've dropped a motorcycle in the water in a river crossing, and it sucked up water and we had to change the oil on the trail, which is definitely less than ideal. But if you don't have any oil with you, it becomes a real problem. Yeah, that's the fuel bottle. I typically will put all my camp gear in one side. That way I just know where everything is. All my camp gear goes on one side, all my clothes and maybe tools go on another side. With any dry bag, you want to make sure you get at least 3 rolls. That's in my opinion here. 2 is probably sufficient, but I like to get at least 3. Smush all the air out as you roll, but get at least 3 rolls of it and then clip it up. And then this is super secure because we've got this buckle here that goes through the roll top dry bag and then cinches everything down really tight like that. And that gear is not going anyways. And there we go. I'm packed for camping. Now, obviously, I don't have the tools and the extra clothing and the food and the water, all the stuff, right? It's just my sleep gear, basically. But let's head off just on a little ride here, and I'll show you how I would set up camp. Huge shout out to Southern Honda Power Sports guys in Chattanooga. They helped me out with the motorcycle and all the riding gear and stuff. So huge shout out. If you need help with anything moto related, make sure you hit them up first. Got to be limber to get on a bike like this. Had to come back for you, obviously. Okay, so let's say I've tucked off the road and I need to make camp for the evening. Now let's say good times. I've just been riding all day and I didn't make it to my campground or my final destination that I was looking for. I'm wore out, exhausted. Maybe it's pouring down rain, weather sucks, and I just need to stop somewhere. Be nice to be able to conceal your camp just a bit because you perhaps may not be in a place where you're supposed to be. I'm not saying that it's okay to camp on private property or public lands where you're not supposed to camp. I'm just saying stuff happens and it's good to be prepared for it. Now let's say bad times perhaps. I'm trying to get from A to B. I'm trying to be discreet as possible and I just need to try to avoid people. These are some tactics that I would employ. So when you are doing this, you do want to be careful to not melt your poncho on the hot exhaust, obviously. So it's a good practice probably to let it cool down a bit. But if you're careful, you can make it happen. It's not perfect, obviously. It doesn't cover the complete motorcycle. You'd have to carry something much larger if you wanted to like drape the thing down to the ground and cover it. But that right there is significantly more concealed than the white motorcycle just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. And I discussed this on a previous video. You know, a lot of people mentioned that, you know, the motorcycle is not very tactical and it's not camouflaged or earth toned and all that. And I get that, but I kind of like it white because I want, in good times, I want people to see me on the road. I want vehicles to see. I got rear-ended one time while riding a motorcycle and the guy didn't see me for whatever reason. And I want to be kind of high vis. So I think white for that reason is a good call. Motorcycle's not completely covered up, but still quite difficult to see. And if you were up here on the road's up there, another 40 yards away, give or take. If you pick a good spot, you got leaf. I always recommend at least 2 layers of vegetation between you and whatever's going to be looking for you. With a big side-by-side or something like that, or some other, you know, apocalyptic type vehicle, all-terrain vehicle, you wouldn't be able to get this far off-road because of all the trees. So I can see that tail light, the red tail light. I'll probably reposition that poncho a little bit to cover that up. If you were looking for it, you'd see it, but if you weren't looking for it, you'd probably just drive right by that. There's absolutely no way those cars up there see me. No way. If I just stand still, even if I don't stand still, there's no possible way that they see me. Man, it's friggin' hot. Jeez, I'm not doing anything and I'm sweating like crazy. If I wanted to make a really discreet shelter, what I would do is I just find myself a nice flat spot, you know, off to the side of the motorcycle somewhere. Let's just say this is it for now. I would stretch out my mat right there, and I would grab my bivy bag. Maybe I'd use this for a pillow. I'd open up this bit. It's way too hot for this right now, but this evening it's probably gonna cool off a little bit. I would open up my bivy bag. I would get inside this puppy, obviously take my moto boots off. With a light drizzle, I would be fine just sleeping in this right here. If it was a heavy downpour, I'd want some cover over top of me, and that's where I'd set up my tarp. But this right here is as minimal as it gets, and honestly, I'm a pretty good sleeper. Maybe you're not, but I sleep really, really good pretty much anywhere. And if I've got, you know, comfy pad like this to lay on, and I'm not cold, and it's not pouring down rain, I could sleep right here just fine and look up through the trees at the stars, right? Maybe not stars. It's pretty dense. Pretty dense jungle here. But yeah, I could sleep here just fine in this position right here with the motorcycle safely stowed away right there. And then packing up camp like this, when you camp like this, it's so fast, it's so easy to pack up camp and be back on the road as quickly as possible. It takes a couple minutes and I'm back ready to roll. I don't like tents. A lot of guys like tents. They love tents because I think the reason most people like tents is because it makes them feel safe and secure, like they're indoors. But for the most part, tents are bulky. They take up space. There's some really, really good ultralight, small little tents out there. That's fine. And if that's your thing, more power to you. But I just prefer not to have a tent, especially in the summertime. Tents in the summer suck. They keep the mosquitoes away, but man, they are unpleasant. If mosquitoes were a problem, I would just have long sleeves on. I pretty much always wear long sleeves when I'm riding or camping or in the woods and just in general. I would just have long sleeves on, and I would take my neck gaiter and I would just put it up over my face, and that's how I deal with mosquitoes in the summertime. That's how I do it for the most part. Summertime hammock camping is the best because if you're wet from the rain or just perspiration, you're soaking wet with sweat. Yeah, it's good to have a dry layer of clothes on, of course. I always pack a dry layer of clothes to sleep in. Really, really smart. But even then, like just walking around in this environment right now, you put your dry layers on and then you end up sweating through them again. Just if you get out to pee, you start sweating. It's ridiculous. All you really need for a hammock is 2 trees. And where I live, there is no shortage of trees. If I was trying to be discreet and stealthy, I would set my hammock up perpendicular to the road, so it has the smallest footprint. You're looking at it like this as opposed to a big hammock like that. So that's how I would set up my tent, or my hammock, sorry. And but you have to find the right spacing of the trees. That's the only difficult part, is you need trees that are the right spacing apart. 10, 12 feet, something like that is probably about right. 8 feet probably minimum. But just with my tarp, it gets a little bit jammed up if you do less than like 10 feet. I love the simplicity of this hammock. This is why I've kept it for so long, this Grand Trunk hammock. There's a lot of good hammocks out there. Some of them are more complicated than others, but this one just has a rope here, and I've tied knots incrementally like this, so I can easily adjust the width, the tension on my hammock. Take it around the tree. I take the cordage and I put it through itself right there, put it through that loop, and that is how it gets secured to the tree. Really easy. And I almost never, to be honest with you, camp in campgrounds. If you're doing this in a campground and people were tying to the same tree over and over and over again, it causes damage to the tree, potentially kill the tree. Yeah, I get that. Someone in the comments is going to mention that. But if you're camping in places that people never camp, it's not going to kill the tree tying to it one time. So don't stress. This tree will be okay, I promise. All you do is you take the other hook and you just hook it where the correct knot is, like that. And that's about right. And that's, with first go, that's about how I'd set my hammock up. It's a little bit low on this side perhaps, so I might raise that up. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. And now all we'd have to do, if we were concerned about precipitation, I would just set my tarp up over top of it. What you could do if you wanted to be super discreet is you could basically set your hammock up like this with your tarp over top of it like that, and you really don't even guy out the ends right here. And I have slept in this situation right here many times. In the summertime when it's really hot, it's not very breathable and you get a little bit stifled in there. But if you're trying to keep as low vis as possible, like for example, if like the view from up by the road would be, you know, kind of like this. You'd be looking at it perpendicular on the end, and it just, there's just not much there to see. It's like hidden behind trees. So from the side, obviously it takes up a much bigger footprint, a much bigger visual thing. But for the most part, if I was trying to stay super low vis, I'd probably do it like this. I might, if I was worried about wind or something, I might stake it out right here to the ground, but probably not. I've been in storms in this situation like this, and rarely does it blow the tarp over top of you. Well, actually, it's never done that. Usually it just kind of pushes it this way and flaps underneath you. So this is probably how I would do it. If I wanted to guy out my lines, that's why I keep cordage attached to the end of my tarp like this, so I can go to any of these trees around here, or the ground, wouldn't matter, and I could stake it out like that. So this is how I would tie. I've got just about to the end of my cordage here, so I don't have much to work with. So what I would do is I would just go around the main line right here with the tag end. I would go around it and then up through the middle right here, closest to the tree. And then you could just half hitch it off with a loop like that. And that holds really securely. When it's time to break camp, you just pull that and everything comes apart really easily. Well, there you go. Pretty simple camp setup. Crawl into my hammock at night. Oh, there's nothing better at the end of a day than crawling into a hammock that's dry, off the ground, you're protected by your tarp above. Or even if it is raining, the sound of rain on a tarp might be better than on a tin roof. I don't know. It's a close one. But this is camp made right here. So very discreet, easy to set up. I can set this all up from once I park the motorcycle to kind of de-gearing, setting everything up, 10 minutes or less, I would say. And I'm in my hammock sleeping if I don't have other chores to do, like cook food and stuff like that. So this is pretty much it, guys. So that's how I would moto camp. And for the most part, that's how I camp just in general. If I'm going out for a weekend adventure or something like that, this is pretty much how I'd set up my camp. This is the same equipment, same gear that I would carry. I don't mix things up like we said before, like I mentioned before. I don't want specific gear for motorcycling. I don't want specific gear for truck camping. I don't want specific gear for backpacking. I want to use the same stuff all the time, year round if possible. So there it is, guys. I really do appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please share this video with somebody with another account that you have, with your siblings, with your mom. I don't care who you share it to. Just make sure you share it. It's really helpful. Leave me lots of comments. Tell me what you think about this setup right here, guys. Any flaws, something I'm missing, something I can do better. I'm always looking to improve, and I really appreciate constructive criticism. So see you on the next one. Thanks so much. You didn't think I'd forget about you, did you? Never. Never.